Hey guys, welcome back to another 3D printing video. So today we're going to be looking at the Ender 3, and even though we did quite a few upgrades already, we're going to do some more and we'll improve the print quality even farther. And plus we're going to try to deal with a recent Creality update that's preventing to do a certain upgrade. Alright, so hopefully you enjoyed the video and let's get started. Alright, so in the previous couple videos of this printer, we did quite a few upgrades. So if you haven't seen those, I'm going to go over quickly what we did. That is if I can remember everything, but we printed quite a few little pieces like this tray here, which has been awesome. There's a cover here on the back of the screen that protects the electronics from, just your hand touching it. So behind this tray, hopefully you guys can see that, it's kind of dark, but there's clips in there that are holding the ribbon cable. This is the Z-axis switch, and I moved this down a bit, what made my bed leveling perfect here. So we also relocated the spool holder, which is now on the side here. And I also printed this pretty unique looking spool mount here that has bearings in it and rolls really easy. So that's been awesome too. So we also fixed the Z-axis alignment here with this little shim. And if we go up from there, you can see here I have a modified filament guide, which is supposed to hold this wire also here. Just like that. And also we have a new clamp here, upgraded from the plastic one that comes in here. So that's been really nice. And also you can see there is a knob here that's printed out, and that really does help feed the filament in and just, visually check how much your extruder is moving there. And also we have fixed the Bowden tube problem here with it moving around with separating with this clip. But not only that, we had to change a little coupler clamp here that's supposed to hold it. They didn't do a good job, but this new one seems to be working fine. And then we did another pretty big upgrade, which is the TL smoothers, and that is in the circuit board underneath the printer here. So if you have the Ender 3 Pro, it's going to be underneath. If you have the regular one, it's going to be on top here. So I think I pretty much mentioned everything that we've upgraded so far on this printer here. And at this point, the printer prints great. I mean, it's just an awesome machine. But in this video, I want to make it a little more awesome. And we're going to start with this Bowden tube. So a lot of you guys recommended that I should change this to a higher quality tube. And so I went ahead and bought the Capricorn Tubing here. I guess this is a more high-end tubing here compared to these white ones here, but it's supposed to have a little bit better tolerances, heat resistance, especially if you're going to start printing hotter temperatures. And not only that, it technically grabs better to the couplings here. So I guess the first thing we need to do is release these little clamps here, or should I say zip ties. So now our tubing is completely free. So I'm going to go ahead and take out this little spacer here. By the way, guys, if you have a 3D printer, unless you have upgrade couplings, most couplings that come on 3D printers, or so far that I have experienced, have not been holding the tube in there correctly. So it seems like that this needs to spread here in order for it to grab better. Alright, so what we're going to do is just going to push that in and then pull the tube out, hopefully here. So one of our ends are out. Now we need to go to this end. So unfortunately, I don't think this end is just as easy as pulling it out, but I'm not sure. I think we have to unscrew this nut here on top and then we'll work from there, but I'm not exactly sure. The reason it's a little bit more complicated on this end is because the tubing goes all the way down to the end where it gets really hot down there. So hopefully we'll be able to do this correctly here. So instead of trying to pull it out, I'm just going to go ahead and try to unscrew this nut here carefully. So seems to go pretty easy overall. So far so good. So for some reason this is not coming out just by tugging on it. So I don't know if I could put more pressure on it or not. I don't want to break anything, so I'm gonna try to use a little heat to warm it up and see if that will help us release it. So we're just gonna go to prepare and preheat Pla. So I'm just gonna, as it's preheating, I'm just gonna tug it a little bit and give it a little tug here. Oh, there it goes. Alright, well that was easy. Alright, so I guess that works. If you can't take it out, warming it up makes it really easy. So let's cool down here. So yeah, look at that. It came out very easily. Alright, let's see if we can get this clamp off here. Okay, it's moving, but it's having a hard time. I guess it's got a really good grip on this tubing here. There it goes. So this seems like to be a high quality coupler here. It's grabbing on really good. Alright, and here's the Capricorn Tubing. They did include a sticker, which is kind of interesting. I guess if you wanted to put that somewhere. But it looks like this comes with 1 meter, which is, I guess, about 3 feet. Technically, this is maybe enough to do a couple of printers. I do have an Ender2 that has a pretty short tube there, so it'll probably be enough for that. That's pretty awesome. So the first thing I'm noticing here, guys, is that on both ends, the cut is not good. It's crooked. So I'm kind of surprised that Capricorn is not cutting their tubes nicely, because that sure would have helped us with one end. That's very important, because the end that goes in here has to be perfectly flat. If it's on an angle a little bit back or forth, there's a chance that your filament will run underneath the tubing, the hot filament, and then, you know, you can have clogs and whatnot else. So it's very important that the tubing is cut very straight and flat. So I don't have a cutter, but I'm going to use some kind of razor or like a knife to cut it as straight as possible. So alright guys, so I didn't find a razor blade, but I got a little kitchen knife style, and this thing's really thin and very sharp. I actually sharpened it. So if you don't have much options, or you don't have a razor blade or whatever, you know, you could use something like this, but the way you want to cut this is 90 degrees from the tubing here, exactly 90 degrees, and plus you don't want to just push on it. What you want to do is you want to saw through it, kind of like back and forth. So as you're pushing down, just go back and forth. So and eventually you'll cut it. I cut mine, but it's not straight enough. So I'm going to do it off camera precisely. But just wanted to let you guys know that you just want to, you know, go easy on it so you don't crush it, because you want this to be as round as possible when you stick it in there. Alright, and that's what it should look like, kind of. So it has to be really, really straight and flat. So obviously it's better to get a cutter, but you know, if you don't have one, this works also. Alright, so the next thing we're going to do is we're going to put the fitting back on, and we're going to screw that down pretty far, but just screw it down with your hand almost to the end, and then kind of leave it a little bit loose just right there. And the reason for that is because we don't want to tighten this until we have our tube all the way down in there. And the reason for that is because we can actually use this to kind of go that tiny little bit and put a little pressure down onto the very bottom to the tip. So that's the idea here. So I'm going to grab my tube. I'm just going to go down in there. And make sure you push that down all the way, guys. Now, I don't know if it's worth heating that up just a little bit to get it all the way down. I'm actually thinking that it is, because that'll give us a better seal. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. Not sure if this will be the most correct way, but I have a feeling that this will be a guarantee that we're going to have a good seal there. Alright, so we heat it up. So let's go ahead and push it in there. So this will ensure that we're going to have a really, really tight fit there. So now we just need to tighten this. And the way I'm going to do that is I'm going to push down on the tube while tightening this and make sure that we're still good. Alright, and that should do the trick. So that should be really tight in there. We can go ahead and zip tie them on the way, and then we'll cut this end. Alright, so I cooled down the hot end and then turned it off. And also I went ahead and put a couple zip ties in already. So now we just need to cut this end to be the perfect length. And so you can kind of eyeball it. You could measure off of the old one, but I found the old one to be a little bit too long. So there's no reason for it to be that long if it doesn't need to be. Technically, the shorter the better. There's less play in the filament while it's retracting. So I'm just going to estimate it about right here or so. And this side doesn't really have to be as accurate as the other side. So I'm just going to cut it on top of this cap here. That should be good enough. So if it's not completely perfectly flat like the other end, it's not a big deal. Alright, so I cut it reasonably straight. It's not perfect. And that goes in there really good, by the way. So, you know, push that in as good as you can. And we're also going to go ahead and put this little clip in here. That way we can guarantee that there will be no movement here. Cut these guys off. And now we're done. Alright guys, so that went really good. Very happy about that. So we'll give it a little test run here in a little bit after our next upgrade. So if you're thinking about changing to Capricorn tubing, I think you should, especially if you have issues with this area. But I wouldn't say this is a necessary upgrade. I think this is one of those upgrades that if you print a lot, and when I mean a lot, I mean like you're printing 24/7. Alright, so this leads us to our next upgrade, which has to do with the fan. And to be more precise, the fan duct. So I'm the kind of person that doesn't really upgrade this kind of stuff unless it's necessary. But if you look at this fan duct, it's just general airflow on a large area. You know, it's kind of like covering a bunch of area with one fan. So I think an upgrade would definitely help if we can focus the airflow, you know, more into a tip underneath that nozzle right there. And this leads me to this piece right here. So this is the duct for the Ender3, and this is a modified one of the original, and I'll leave links to this one here, which should fit the Ender3, because I think the original one that was designed was for the CR10. And not only that, this duct works with the silicone sock that we already have installed. And if you look at it up close here, guys, you can see that the air is directed very nicely to the center right underneath the nozzle. So the 3D printer that printed this was the FlashForge Adventure 3 in ABS. So I'm pretty sure you can print this in PLA and it'll be just fine. It's pretty far away from, you know, the heat and all that stuff. So because I had the ability to print in ABS, this is where I utilized it. Stronger and longer lasting part here. So here you can see we have 2 bolts that are holding the duct. So Creality provides the Allen wrenches you need for this size. So we're going to go ahead and unscrew that. And the second one. And now the fan spout should just pop off. Yep, there it goes. Simple as that. So let's look at these guys together here. So you can see how the air is channeled. So here on the original, it's just, you know, straight down and that's it. Nothing too special. Just kind of shooting that way. And on this upgrade here, we can see that we're channeling the air all to one spot. And kind of, you know, in a pattern where it's all going to end up right underneath the nozzle there. Alright, so let's see how this thing will fit in here. So we should be able to just clip in there. Alright, so it was a little bit of a tight fit, but it goes in there just fine. And there you go, guys. You can see how perfectly that fits. So now we can put our bolts in there. Everything should fit just fine. Alright, so I got the bolts tight. And let's look at this thing a little closer here. Hopefully you guys can see it. Air there goes straight to the nozzle. Perfectly right down at it. So that should be perfect, and it's got really good clearance, so that should not be an issue either, because that top lip of the channel there kind of shoots it down. I don't know if you could tell or not, but alright, well, I'm pretty excited to try this thing out. Alright, so I want to print something now that we have the new Bowden tube and the fan duct under there. I want to go ahead and print another benchy with this red PLA that I always use. And the reason I want to do that is because I can compare it to the one I already printed, so we can see if there's any kind of difference with that fan duct or even maybe the tube here. So the only negative thing about this tube is you can't really see where your filament's in there at all, because the other one's kind of clear and this one's completely darkened. So alright, there we go. So it looks like we had white in there the last time. Alright, there it is. Let's click it and we'll see what happens. Alright, so it's purging there. I actually really like the way the Ender3 purges like to the side there, because it usually starts off with a really good print. So hopefully I can show you guys the profile here. You can see that duct is pretty good, got pretty good clearance. So there's some kind of rasping noise coming out, and it's this fan here. If I touch it, it goes away. The fan duct that we put in there, so I guess I didn't tighten it good enough or something. It's vibrating. But I was trying to show you the level there. It's pretty good. So I tried to tighten it a bit while it was printing, but it's kind of hard to do that, obviously. I don't want to mess up the print too much. So I'm just going to let it vibrate, and I'll look at it after it's done. But yeah, it looks like our level is great, and everything's going fine. The duct is fine, seems like, right there. So hopefully we'll get a nice print. So it looks like the benchy's printing pretty well overall. I messed with the fan duct a little bit, and it stopped vibrating. So it looks like to be an excellent print so far. Alright, so the benchy's done, and it took 2 hours and 57 minutes, looks like. So not too bad, not too bad. Alright, let's pop them off here. So taking it off should be breeze, of course it is. I still don't get why some people don't like this flexible bed. I think it's awesome. I guess if you're going to do more extreme printing, maybe it's not that awesome. But plus, if you want a really smooth bottom, obviously this won't give it to you either. But overall, just for casual printing, this is awesome. It is a little bit annoying to put back on the bed though. You have to line it up just right. But you know, it's not that big of a deal. Alright, so let's take a closer look at this benchy. So overall, it looks great. So I wouldn't really say that it's much better than the one we already have. I can see that the overhangs are a little better. Like on the arches over there. Let's look at the front here on the window. The window does seem a little straighter too. So overall, a solid benchy. So look at that rear window on the top there. It's almost perfect, but not quite there. So here's the last benchy that we printed without the fan. So this is the original benchy and this is the new one here. I don't know guys, to my eye they look extremely similar. So this is the original here and this is the new one right here. But you can tell that our overhangs are definitely better because here's the new one right here. And you can see the top of that window is a little better than the other one. The other one has a little bit of a sag there. This newer one has less sag. So I took some time and looked at these up close one by one, and definitely the one with the fan upgrade does look a little better, but it's ever so slightly. I wouldn't say that the fan did a huge upgrade, but you know, every little bit counts when you're, you know, printing a model, and especially one that has fine detail. All right, so that's that. So there's one more thing that I want to do to this printer, and that is stepper dampers. And the reason I want to put the dampers on is because I want to make this machine more quieter, because all that little sound that this motors make, you know, gets kind of annoying after a little while. And the Ender3 is actually pretty loud when it comes to the stepper motor sounds. So what we're going to do is we're going to try to install these stepper dampers, but we have a pretty big issue, and that issue is our gears here on the motor are actually pressed, I think. So Creality has apparently started pressing these on instead of having the little screw that tightens the gear here to the shaft. Instead they decided to press it, which is kind of interesting. So let's go ahead and take the Y belt off first, because this would be probably the easier one to work on. And to do that we need to loosen these 4 bolts. Alright, so the bolts are loose and this should move forward and our belt should be pretty loose. So if we go back here, back to the motor, we can take off the belt just like that. So let's grab a damper here so you can see a little better what's going to basically be the issue here. Is that if you added this damper in between the motor and the bracket here, what's going to happen is it's going to add that much thickness to it. And so when it adds this much thickness to it, this pulley would be offset, so it would need to go out exactly this much here. So normally what you'd be able to do is just unscrew the little screw that goes in the pulley here, and that will loosen it and you can move it around. But these are pressed on there where you can't do that. So I think if you have the older Ender3, now I think most newer ones are like this, unfortunately. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to unbolt this thing. Well, actually I'm going to unplug it first. Alright, so the 4 bolts are out, and now the motor should just pop right out. So I'm not sure exactly how hard pressed that is, but I have a feeling that it's pretty hard. But I do have an idea that I want to try. And basically the idea is if I have something that can hold this pulley like this, then I can hit right here in the middle, forces the shaft down, making it where, you know, it'll start sliding out. So that's the idea. This is the only thing I can really think of without, you know, having like a pulley or a puller that can pull this out, because that would be the right way to do it. Alright, so here's my progress so far. So what I did was I used the pliers, and whenever I put these pliers together like this, there would be just enough room for the shaft to move. So the pliers are holding this part, and now I can hit inside there. That way I'm just hitting the shaft, and that's not affecting the motor at all. I'm not putting any kind of pressure or anything funny to the motor. Essentially this is how a pulley would work, but we're hitting instead of pulling slowly. And so what I did is I put it like this, and then I take this little extension that I made out of the tools I had, and I put it in there, and then I just hit it with the hammer. And as you can see guys, that's working pretty well because we've moved about a 1/4 inch or so. You can see because it was flush earlier. Alright guys, so you can see I got it pretty deep, so it's about halfway down the pulley. But I think this will be just fine. So let's take a damper here, and this should just go right over just like that. And this hole right here is actually the perfect size to fit right on there. So once it goes on there, it's solid, like it doesn't move at all. So now we take the original bolts that were in the motor and we screw them on each side. And we're going to tighten these up all the way, so because it will be hard to reach this area later. And that's what we have now, the damper on there. So now we can install our motor back into here how it was, but there's an issue because there is little nubs right there. You can see those little nubs sticking out. I'm not sure exactly what that's for, but we need a flush flat surface area, because you can see here on our bracket it's all flush. Alright guys, so I just clipped them off with some clippers, and it's actually a lot easier than I thought it would be. So they just pop right off. Alright guys, so the damper is on and everything's back on, and we can see it all fits pretty well. So the damper should be isolating us completely from this frame. So the motor does have like a little play, as you can see. The only thing that's between the frame here and the motor is that rubber right in the middle. And that's what's going to soak up all that noise, supposedly, from the stepper motors making their stepper motor signature noise. So now all we got to do is put the belt back on. We should be pretty good right there. So we're not completely good all the way out, but we're pretty close. So we're to the edge of that idler pulley and kind of to the edge of this pulley here. So, but it appears to be that it'll be fine. So. Alright, so the next issue is this knob back here. Whenever it comes over here, it's too close to the stepper motor and it touches it. Easily move this a few millimeters on our switch here and should not have any issue. So in order for the knob not to touch the motor here, I had to move it about 5 millimeters or so, which is not a big deal, but I think I want to offset that just a little bit with these washers here. So I'm going to put 2 washers under each bolt between the frame and the bracket here, which would give us back about 3 millimeters or so. Alright guys, so I put the spacers in there. Maybe you can see they're in there. So that's turned out pretty good. So the whole thing's super solid. There's going to be no issues, I don't think. And that's where the switch is now. So it's still almost pretty much at the same place. But I have no issue with that knob touching this even all the way back now. So all I got to do next is tighten the belt. We'll be done with the y-axis. Alright guys, so we're done with that. And everything looks good. So now we can move to our x-axis here. So that's going to be a little bit harder because, first of all, we have really long bolts. So our hardware might not be able to work with the new dampers, but we'll figure that out. So let's go ahead and unplug this motor. So the screws are actually behind this sticker here. So we can completely take it off, or we can just peel the edges. I'm just going to go ahead and take it off. So let's go ahead and take these 4 bolts off. But before that, we do need to loosen the belt here. So once the 4 bolts are out, it should just completely come out pretty easily, and you can see that our switch is inside of that little box there. So we're just going to pull the belt off, and so now that this motor is out, we're just going to do what we did to the other motor. Alright guys, so I got the motor all finished. The pulley here is out a good ways, about halfway. And one of the things I forgot to note that on the other one also is that when you start hitting on it, this shaft could go through here a little bit, so you might have to knock it back in. So it all kind of moves around. Alright, so now all we got to do is just work in reverse order, and then we're going to put that cap over it with 2 bolts, and that's it. Alright guys, so I got the belt on there, and hopefully you can see there. So it does kind of go to one side a little bit more than the other, but it's not bad. It's not rubbing on the wall, it's just getting to the edge. So I'm going to tighten up everything, plug the motor in, and we should be done with the dampers. Alright guys, so now everything is done. I put the sticker back on to cover up those holes because of the 2 extra bolts that don't go in there. So you can see the damper right there. So I'm kind of excited to try this thing out. I'm going to level the bed, and then we'll print another benchy just to compare to the other benchies to make sure that we're not losing quality or maybe gaining quality. But alright guys, so I got the print started. I leveled the bed, and I actually did one more thing. I put some spacers behind this fan. Let's see if I can. That little white piece, that's a PTFE tubing. I just cut it off the old one where I changed it. And I'm using it kind of like a spacer. And I tightened the top a little bit more than the bottom. So you can see there's a little gap right there. So that's going to give me a little bit more lean down on that fan. So, and I'm pretty sure I'm blowing right at the tip now. Oh, I can definitely tell it's quieter. It's definitely quieter, I can tell. Wow, it's actually a lot quieter. I can actually hear the extruder. Wow, that is crazy, guys. That's a huge difference. I don't know if you guys can hear it. I'm going to bring the microphone. That's actually very quiet. That really made a huge difference. So it still has that wee 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 sound, but it's very, very, very faint. So I'll play a clip where the original sound is and with this one. So you should be able to tell the difference there. Everything's sticking beautifully as usual, and that's one thing about this printer that has been amazing, is that the bed has been great every time. So I've never had an issue with the print not sticking, which is pretty amazing. But I'm definitely loving how quiet it is now. I can hear the fans mostly now. Alright guys, so the benchy is printing and it's very quiet. As you can hear, I'm getting close to the fans here. The printer whining noise is not there. I actually had another idea. I cut up some foam pads that I got from packaging, kind of like feet, and they're pretty squishy. And I was thinking about putting it underneath the printer because I know that the vibrations go down into the table, and that makes the table make sounds also. This printer does have pretty good squishy feet, but I think this will give it even more quietness. So let's try it out for fun. So I'm just gonna lift it up as it's printing here. And I can tell already that that is much quieter. Just like on 2 feet, it's much quieter. Let me go ahead and put the rear ones on. And so now it's literally silent, almost. I'm gonna bring the microphone to it. That's crazy. It's super silent. It's probably even half or more as silent more with these little pads here. So that's a pretty good hack right there. So maybe it'll be worth investigating something similar to this that maybe looks a little better for the bottom. I know they have a print of some sort for the bottom of the feet. So maybe I'll try that one day, but maybe this will be all right for me, just these little pads here. But yeah, if you got packing material laying around, try it out. I think it'll surprise you. All right, so our benchy is done. Let's take a closer look at it. So if we look at it here pretty close, we can see that it is still an excellent print. So I don't think those dampers affected the print at all in any way. And we can see our overhangs are still really good. Maybe the best they've been so far. So overall it seems like a really good print, and actually an excellent print. So here's our first benchy that we printed with the new fan upgrade, and you can see they look identical. Or very close to identical. So overall, I would say that the dampers didn't really hinder the quality. So overall, I think this was a pretty successful upgrade because we did gain a little bit better overhangs with the fan, and we have lost a lot of noise. This thing is so quiet now that you can barely hear it from just a few feet away. And you wouldn't even really know that unless you did this mod, and then you would realize how quiet it got. But not only that, but these feet here, these foam feet, actually helped even twice as much after we put the dampers on. So if you want a quiet printer without doing the dampers, go ahead and see what you can do with the feet. They do have some printable ones on Thingiverse that you can print that could be pretty good, but I'm probably just going to use this foam because it's an easy solution for me and I don't have to mod anything for those feet. And plus I have a feeling that the foam is probably going to be better insulator anyway. So the dampers did definitely work and made the machine much quieter. So unfortunately our pulleys were not able to come out. We'd have to beat them out. I showed you guys how to do that, and hopefully that was helpful. I know it's a little bit barbaric, but that's the only way I got to get those sprockets out. But if you want to do it the right way, you might want to get some kind of little puller or something. I'm sure they have that in the RC world. And last but not least, guys, we did get a new Bowden tube here. And I also think this is a good upgrade, especially if you're going to print a lot. Now, if you're just a casual user, I wouldn't worry about changing your Bowden tube unless, you think you need to, because it's not really going to give you any visible print difference in the quality, but it's just more of a peace of mind and a higher component for longer life. So yeah, we've done quite a few upgrades to this printer now, and I'm very happy how it all turned out. The printer at this point is tuned and can print pretty much anything in pretty high quality. So I'm gonna leave all the links to all the upgrades that I've ever done to this thing. Well, hopefully all of them in the description below, so check that out. And if you're still thinking about getting an Ender 3, I would highly recommend it, especially the Pro model here. I think the a little bit extra is worth the money. Alright guys, well hopefully you enjoyed this video. If you did, then hit that like button. And if you enjoy videos like this and you're not subscribed, then hit that subscribe button. I got a lot more videos coming, and I also got more 3D printers to review, so stay tuned for that. And as always guys, thanks for watching, and I'll see you on the next one. Peace.